Four Seasons by Antonio Vivaldi. Yet another one of those overplayed, overexposed, done-to-death classics that audiences somehow keep coming back for. Let's have some fun with it, shall we? Now, this is one of the most famous examples of programmatic music, possibly the earliest known example of programmatic music. And by programmatic music, I mean music that has an explicit story or narrative to tell without the help of lyrics. But you might not realize just how explicitly programmatic the Four Seasons are. You see, each season has associated with it a poem, a sonnet, not to be sung, but just as a reference to what is going on in the music. And we don't know who wrote these. It might have been Vivaldi himself. But they talk about the weather and the animals and people doing seasonal tasks. So we know exactly what Vivaldi was trying to depict. So let's see how well he did, and let's see if we can do better. Okay, spring, first movement. Spring has come. This movement is probably one of my least favorite pieces of music ever. It's like the very embodiment of toxic positivity. Ooh, let's all be cheerful and happy. Everything is beautiful and full of smiles. Shut up and get out of my face, Tony. I don't know why I find this movement so obnoxious, but it might be partly because the music starts to feel kind of stuck. It would help if all he did was, say, change up the bass line a little bit. Or the melody itself. That's already a lot less obnoxious, I think. All right, then we have a lot of bird calls. Is this really what birdsong sounds like? Paging Olivier Messiaen, we need an ornithologist here. All right, so the birdsong goes on for maybe 3 or 4 hours, and finally we get into the dominant key of B major. Okay, this is interesting. Thunder. I guess April showers bring May flowers and all that. I'm not sure what Vivaldi was going for here. Maybe these are the birds trying to escape the storm by flying above the clouds. But this part always sounds to me more like a car that needs a squeaky fan belt replaced. Is that a springtime thing? Maybe. So we ended up in the minor key. How does Vivaldi get us out of the minor key, out of the storm, and back home? That chord progression, it's an okay chord progression to use if your home key were the minor key and you were trying to modulate into the relative major to do your secondary theme. But if your home key is the major key and you're trying to modulate back from the relative minor, it's very unsatisfying somehow. It's as if you were telling a story where everything was going wrong and then you said, oh, but then all of a sudden everything was okay and everyone lived happily ever after. It's too easy. It would be a lot more compelling if we had been taken for a bit more of a walk. Maybe like this. is here. Or maybe hallelujah, we got through that movement. Next movement. All right, this one is nice. All right, so we have three distinct musical elements here that are helpfully labeled. We have the sleeping goatherd, okay, that's very nice. The murmur of the fronds and plants. Okay, I like that. And then the barking dog. Does that sound like a dog to you? It doesn't sound like anything to me. It could be a dog, could be a barking dog, could be a barking spider, it could be a car alarm, it could be anything. It doesn't sound like anything specific. I mean, what does a dog really sound like? Ruff, ruff! That sounds like a dog to me. So just rewrite the dog throughout, and this movement will be a lot better. Next movement, rustic dance. Okay, I used to do contra dancing years ago, and let me tell you, it's a lot more energetic and upbeat than this. Come on, Tony, step it up. Thank you for the honor of this dance, milady. Next season, summer. Notice that Vivaldi has nothing good whatsoever to say about summer. You're either gasping for breath in the stifling heat, or you're trying to shoo off a lot of very aggressive insects, or you're getting drenched in a thunderstorm. Now, I get it, I'm a cold weather person myself, but seriously, isn't there anything good whatsoever about summer? Let's see how Vivaldi begins this one. The opening passage is labeled "Exhausted by the Heat." It does get livelier later on, but honestly, starting out being exhausted and dejected is not a winning move. You don't go to a concert to feel exhausted and dejected, at least I don't. What I would do is rewrite the opening to be in what they call Baroque French overture style. And to demonstrate what that is if you don't know, here is the same sequence of pitches for the melody, but I'm going to change up the rhythm and add some ornamentation. There's something wonderfully expansive and outdoorsy about these so-called French overtures, especially the ones that Bach and Handel wrote. So I think if you just were to rewrite the opening of this movement, the rest of it would be all right. Next movement. Okay, this one is kind of picturesque. . 'Cause 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 So we've got these flies and wasps going bzz, 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 and thunder rumbling in the distance. So it's very nicely done. The problem is we've already got the opening movement in the minor key, and we're going to have the closing movement in the minor key. So it would be really nice to have at least one movement for summer in the major. So what is good about summer? What about ice cream? Did they have ice cream in Vivaldi's day? I don't know, and I don't care. This is Vivaldi's original melody. I just put it into the major key and I'm playing it in the style of an ice cream truck. And yes, I took the thunder out, but you're about to get a lot of that, believe me. Next, movement. Everyone's favorite movement, the thunderstorm. I realized this was probably groundbreaking for its time. The problem is that years later Vivaldi got completely upstaged by Beethoven when Beethoven wrote the thunderstorm movement of his Pastoral Symphony. And now Vivaldi's thunderstorm just sounds totally lame compared to this. So that's what I would do. I would replace Vivaldi's thunderstorm with Beethoven's thunderstorm. And it actually works out great because Beethoven's thunderstorm, instead of properly ending, leads right into the next movement of the Pastoral Symphony with this transition. And that is the perfect setup for Vivaldi's next season, fall. This is even sillier than the first movement of spring. What kind of tune is this? This movement is labeled Villagers Dance and Song. I guess the subtext here is supposed to be bunch of dumb rednecks don't know how to play more than 2 notes. Or 2 chords really is the problem. Because a melody can be dead simple, having only 2 or 3 pitches, but if the harmonization is interesting, it can really take it places. You know who was a master at this is Rachmaninoff. A lot of Rachmaninoff's tunes are actually pretty simple, but his harmonization is so imaginative you would never notice. This is the sort of thing, for example, that Rachmaninoff might have done with this melody from Fall. Next movement. All right, we have dozing drunkards. This is boring. Who wants to listen to a bunch of dozing drunkards? Why couldn't Vivaldi have picked something more interesting about fall, like Halloween? It's even in the right key, too. So that's what I would do. I would just substitute the toccata part of Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor for Vivaldi's slow movement. Next movement. Okay, this one is fun. Now, I always used to think that this movement was like a peasant's harvest time dance. But no, apparently this is supposed to represent a hunt. What with the violins imitating horns. And horns traditionally having been associated with hunting. Well, if this is a hunt, I had better dress accordingly. If we had timpani, we could put in the gunshots Peter and the Wolf style. What makes this movement fun is that it's depicting the hunt both from the hunter's point of view and the beast of prey's point of view. The tutti passages are basically the hunters and their dogs, and the violin solo parts are the beast fleeing across the fields. There's really only one unsatisfying part of this movement, and that is where the beast flees but finally succumbs to its wounds and dies. And this is how Vivaldi depicts that. And then it goes back to the hunter's point of view. But it always sounds to me like a sort of, ta-da, what a beautiful death sort of gesture. And if you really wanted to depict it from the animal's point of view, something like this would have been far more effective. And then you can go back to the hunters. Thus endeth the hunting season for the year. Next season! I have to say, of the original four, I find winter to be by far the most compelling. Vivaldi really nailed this one. Starting from the beginning, this is so clearly bitter cold, gray skies, and the first few flurries starting to come down. of course, right there, that was a gust of icy wind. And then later on, you have shuffling around to keep yourself warm and stamping the snow out of your boots. Yeah, I honestly don't have anything I would change about this one. Next, movement. Yeah, okay, this one does suffer from overexposure somewhat, but let's face it, this is a great tune. This is the perfect music for sitting by the fire in your favorite armchair, big mug of hot chocolate, a good book, and listening to the sleet bouncing on the window panes. Yeah, I don't have anything to change about this one either. Last movement. And this starts out wonderfully bleak in a poetic sort of way. I feel like I'm staring across a frozen lake at the night sky. Later on, you have some declamatory passages that feel like they're straight out of Beethoven. And of course, you have the thrilling conclusion of Winter going out like a lion, as they say, with the March windstorms. There's really only one thing missing from Vivaldi's depiction of winter, and that is the excitement and adrenaline of last-minute Christmas shopping. So, at the risk of throwing off the symmetry of each season having 3 movements, not that I haven't already completely ruined the whole series, I would interpolate the tripack from Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker as a sort of scherzo in between Vivaldi's last 2 movements. So there you have it, the 4 seasons as revised, updated, and improved by yours truly. And I'm curious, of Vivaldi's originals, which season is your most favorite and which is your least favorite? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you whenever next time is, I guess. I'm Ben, signing off.